everyone. Today we are here with Tsveti to discuss Pluto through the houses. So we did make a video about Pluto in Aquarius. That was more of a general overview. And today we want to break it down a little bit for you more in depth, what it might mean for you in certain houses. And also, we are going to be talking about the Pluto phases a little bit more. Two short announcements to make. There is going to be a retreat being held from June 12th in Izmir. Unfortunately, I had to change the date due to some visa matters. So it's June 12th. It's going to be 6 days altogether. So if you are interested, check the description box and click on the link and you will be able to see the syllabus. It's going to be all about relationship. The second announcement is that I am launching a new course in May. It's going to be all about the asteroids, the 30 most important asteroids. So if you would like to deepen your knowledge about them, it's a few years of research of my own. So check it out, and hopefully it will give you some great tips of how to go about the asteroids in your own natal chart. And thirdly, Tsveti's promotion of the Saturn and the Pluto reading are still running till the end of the month. So if you are curious about how Pluto and Saturn plays out in your natal chart currently, then you might want to check her services out. How are you, Tsveti?
Hi, Victor. Hi, everyone. I'm doing great. Thank you. Yeah, very excited about the topic of Pluto through the houses. As a Scorpio ascendant, Pluto is my ruler. So this is the planet, I would say. It causes really deep transformation. And if you don't want to implement it willfully, it will just come to you forcefully. That's what I like to say about Pluto. And it's like the final purpose is to make you stop suffering and just start giving your talents and gifts so that you can heal others as well. It's like jumping over this barrier to start sharing your pain.
That's right. I mean, what we will cover in this video today, firstly, we're going to be looking at the Pluto cycle. So at certain ages in your life, Pluto will be sextiling natal Pluto. Pluto will be squaring your natal Pluto. Pluto might be trining your natal Pluto. So we're going to look at that a little bit more in depth. And then after, we're going to go into Pluto in certain houses. So stay till the very end, because you might be able to take a lot away from this video. Also, we're going to be looking at just the general meaning of Pluto with keywords, the positive and the negative manifestations, so you can put a little bit more effort into your own chart as well to see how to use it to the best level. Now, as I mentioned, firstly, we're going to be looking at the Pluto cycles a little bit. What inspired actually me to talk about these Pluto cycles, because currently I am going through my Pluto square Pluto at the moment. And whenever Pluto makes a transit to its natal position, those are invitations to make a huge change in your life. Forces are working within us to make those great changes. Pretty much I would call it as the renewal of the self. It is calling you to face your issues. However, when we are stubborn about making the necessary change, then we will invite in some dark forces that will not be easy to face, especially with the hard aspects. So think about Pluto as the higher octave of Mars. When it's forming an angle in your chart, it basically activates and stirs up the pot a little bit. But it's a lot more intense way than Mars. Mars is more straightforward. It's more direct. Pluto lurks kind of in the dark, and then it hits you. It hunts you down with huge forces. So when you have got Pluto, whether it's squaring your natal Pluto or sextiling your natal Pluto, no matter what happens but our personality, attitude, or behavior needs adjusting. Now, Pluto has got a 248-year cycle. So we will never experience, for example, a Pluto-Pluto opposition in in our lifetime, but we can experience the trine somewhere towards the end of it. Now, conjunction can take place actually between natal Pluto and the transit Pluto at the beginning of our life, especially if we were born at the beginning of a retrograde cycle, or when Pluto was ready to turn direct just after our birth. And if you have got that type of conjunction in your chart, then usually it indicates some type of early childhood traumas. These are some type of deep imprint in the psyche. Obviously, that's not a period of time when you can change your habits or personality or attitudes, but you're gonna have to be dealing with that sometimes at one point in your life later on, most likely when Pluto is actually squaring your natal Pluto. Now, whenever you have got these transits going on in your chart, you might want to be allowing at least a 2 to 3 degree orb. So often these transits, these transformational changes are lasting for a good 4 or 5 years as well, you know. But at the beginning of the orb, within about 2 to 3 degree, you're gonna see some signs of what needs changing. So let's break it down a little bit more. If you have got Pluto, for example, in sextile to your natal Pluto, a sextile is an easy aspect. So it might be easier to agree with the changes that are coming up in your life. You might feel that the changes are actually necessary, and you might be actually craving to make those changes as well. Yes, you can still become very vulnerable, but it's a lot easier to deal with it. We are willing to learn with the Pluto sextile Pluto. We are ready to spiritually grow. We are ready to calm our, claim our own power. Of course, it will be a challenge still. That's the nature of Pluto. So it never comes with with stuff on a silver plate, but usually it comes with a price. But you are more willing to absorb the energy of Pluto. So when there is this sextile, something has to die in our lives. And often you start asking, who the heck I am? What the heck do I need to leave behind? Often, actually, it's something good which you need to leave behind. And often it comes with a little bit of a reluctancy as well. But then in the end, usually it is extremely rewarding as well. Often we are just dissatisfied with our status, for example, or with work. That is why we want to make some changes. We want to leave the work behind. But eventually you do leave it behind. And then you see that, you know what, this was the best course of action. Or, for example, you might be unhappy in your relationship. So eventually you will be making the necessary changes. Now, when Pluto squares actually natal Pluto, now that's a little bit more of a challenge, though. It is especially difficult if you have got a Pluto square to another planet in your birth chart as well, or in an opposition to another. Because when Pluto starts squaring your natal Pluto, it will be actually squaring or opposing the third party as well. So it will activate the other parts of your natal chart also. So for example, imagine that you have got a Pluto-Venus hard aspect in your chart. When Pluto starts squaring your natal Pluto, it actually squares your Venus too. So that could be the challenge there. Or imagine that you have got, for example, Pluto, Saturn square natally in your natal chart. Now, Pluto was in the sign of Libra up till about 1983. So those who were born between 1982 and 1983, just like myself, they do have a Pluto-Saturn conjunction going on. Now, the recent Pluto-Saturn conjunction took place in the sign of Capricorn, so therefore it was squaring their natal placement as well. Important to mention that the age differs for everyone. So I'm not going to give you a guideline about what age it is happening. The reason why it varies because Pluto has got this funny orbital period. It tends to be spending a little bit more time in the sign of Taurus, 32 years. But for example, it spends about 20 years in the sign of Aquarius. And only it spends 15 years in the sign of Capricorn. So it's going to be different for everyone. For example, those people who were born between 900 to 920, Pluto square Pluto happened in their 50s, closer to the 60s, actually. But those people who were born in the 80s, they experienced this square at the end of their 30s, very early of their 40s. Or those people who were born in the 90s, they actually experience the Pluto square Pluto at the second part of their 40s, or even at the beginning of their 50s. So now you can see that it is, something we cannot generalize here for you. Now, Pluto often is connected to sexuality. So when the Pluto square Pluto happens in your natal chart, typically it is some type of sexual dissatisfaction. Imagine, for example, that you are married and the intimacy is not necessarily working anymore. And you might be overlooking that with a Pluto sextile Pluto, but with a square, you cannot overlook this issue anymore. And then you feel this itchiness to move on. You might feel that your relationship does not have any type of life in it anymore. And you're going to start questioning, what is intimacy? We want to be having honest conversation about it. We might feel that I don't trust the partner anymore. So there is a call here to experience more passion in our life, because the square is always about a call to act on something. So Pluto square Pluto is a call to action to get the deeper meaning of our power, to feel that we are strong about something. So there is a strong struggle going on here, typically with Pluto square Pluto. Shall I stay in the relationship or shall I go somewhere else? Can this relationship be saved, or it does need to be dumped, basically? And then you often feel stuck in a rut. You often feel paralyzed with Pluto. You often feel that you don't have a room to breathe, or you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. One thing is for sure with Pluto square Pluto, that eventually we're going to have to make a decision, or we might get sick, for example. Often, actually, what happens during this period is that our sexual appetite kind of starts dropping significantly. And there is an invitation to make changes. The changes can be made in regards to power, money, sex, trust, exploring our own hidden talents. It's about discovering some deep emotions within us that wants to come onto the surface. And when you try to suppress it, the physical body is going to react, but in a negative way. We should remember that every single planet wants to reward us. So Pluto does want to reward us as well, but it does not allow to hide the pain. It doesn't allow to hide the emotions. We must face them and we must bring them to the surface. That's the secret with Pluto. So to give you another example here, when you devote your life to something, and it's too overwhelming, then the square comes around and it starts shaking it up. Imagine that you have devoted your life to your children or to your parents, but children do grow up, and then we might feel that we became useless. So you're going to start questioning, what have I achieved in this life? Where is my own power? Or imagine that the parents are going to die on one day. What am I going to do? So often with Pluto square Pluto, there is a realization that the life is too short. I'm not successful. I'm old. I'm aging. People are leaving me behind, and so forth. So, I would say that when you're dealing with Pluto square Pluto, it pretty much depends on what age it takes place. If it's in your, 50s, then probably it's the old age. If it's in your late 30s, beginning of your 40s, that Pluto can talk about relationship as well. Maybe in your 50s and 60s, you're going to start thinking about your retirement. What am I going to do once I retire? I don't have enough money. I have to work till the age of 75, and then it stresses us out. So with Pluto, we always meet the angel of death. whether it is through operation or accidents or divorce or a loss of a job. Either way, one door closes and another opens.
Yeah.
So with Pluto, there is no place for negativity. Often this could show actually health issues as well, as I said, that we need to be reminded. So, and obviously you might be having the Pluto trine Pluto as well in your natal chart. Similarly to the Pluto sextile Pluto, it's the easier version as well. It might be happening sometimes above your 60s or, you know, even above. Some people might be experiencing very late 50s. Again, it depends on what year you were born in, but it's that change is a lot easier to embrace, I would say. So, for example, Pluto trine my natal Pluto is going to be in about 30 years' time. So I'm going to be experiencing it somewhere around age 70-ish.
Mm.
So, Tsveti, how did you feel about your own Pluto square Pluto? I guess you had it a few years ago, right?
Yes, I had it a few years ago, and it was quite harsh, to tell you the truth, because I was resisting change. So I had to start psychological therapy with a psychotherapist because I had to dig out the skeleton from the closet. I have Pluto natal in my 12th house, so I've been really having huge fear related to my emotions. And yeah, I had a hard time expressing them in a constructive way, so I just piled them up and never actually told anyone how I felt about things, and especially family members. And when Pluto actually squared from my 3rd house, I started digging deep into astrology as well, because I needed to dig out those traumas and just figure out why that happened to me so that I stop feeling like the victim. And yeah, it's a very hard and painful, but also very fruitful process. And it really gives the rewards after quite a long time of hard work, inner work. I mean, really huge inner work. And also, there was something related to spirituality with me, because maybe Pluto is in my 12th house natally. But I have always been involved in some kind of spiritual groups, and I was dealing with meditative practices, and I am a Qigong instructor. I graduated from the School of Master Mantak Chia in Thailand. And when Pluto made the initial hit in the square, I just woke up one morning and I said, that's enough. These practices are not doing good to me because I'm not ready to incorporate them. And so they're harming my body and nothing goes out of me. And because I was so reluctant to share. So I suddenly stopped doing everything I used to do and started digging deep on the psychological level and not so much on the physical. And there is something else I believe is happening during the Pluto square. It's more generational observation, more related to the generations. Because of Pluto's orbit, it happens at different ages, but it is I observe, and many people do indeed, that young girls have their periods much earlier now than they used to in the past. And I believe this is due to the Pluto sextile transit, because the lately Pluto is going through signs which last shorter periods of time. So the first sextile will be when girls are younger, and the square actually could be causing first symptoms of menopause, indeed. So hormonal changes as well. And I believe that this we can accept, especially women, but I also think that this happens to men in a different way. It's not possible not to affect the body. It does. We grow old and so on. So I really think that the fact that young kids these days have access and become sexually active at such an early age is very much related to this Pluto and to this desire for sexual activity, and it's just triggered within them much earlier, I think. And then with the square, we just come to notice what we did right, what we did wrong. Menopause could come earlier, or it's like, because Pluto is very extreme, it goes to either or situation. Many women give birth like catching the last train, kind of at a very late age, very late in their lifetime, like it's the last option. No escape now. Do you want, take it or leave it? It's like, do you want it or not? And I believe this is a result of the Pluto square as well, apart from other things, but this is very generational. It kind of happens very much everywhere around the world, especially in the Western society. It's very visible because of the values that we have, and Pluto starts asking us to question our values. And yeah, when we see we actually really want to manifest the sexual energy in the best creative way, which is children, then it's like women give birth later and later. And yeah, that's what I see Pluto is about as a generational aspect, mostly because it moves. Yeah.
Well, you started talking about the keywords for Pluto, so let's look at the positive and the negative keywords for Pluto. So let's start with the positive one, being more uplifting.
Well, Pluto, it's about regeneration. So when you question your values, you regenerate yourself. You actually get to know yourself much better on a psychological level, and then transform. That's another key word, to transform something, to transmute. It's a kind of, we get deep intuition, like almost clairvoyance of what we really need, what's deep inside of us. So once we realize all that we need, we get our power back. That's another key word, and it leads to revival. And once we are much more on our path in life, we can kind of attract. Pluto attracts. It's like a magnet. Welfare. It also rules passion, motivation, spiritual power, bringing us back to who we really are. It also rules the wise magician. It's kind of a white magic, so we can start to realize how we can transform our lives through ourselves, through our psyche, through meditation, through going deep, like having the drive for deep internal healing. It's when we put conscious effort to psychologically heal something that we didn't want to face for ages, so that we can move on. It's about acceptance of our shadow side. It's about the willpower to transform. Pluto is the higher octave of Mars, as we said, so it's really, it talks about the willpower that we have, and it's kind of acquiring, accepting a mindset where no hardship is actually stronger than our will. So we just keep on moving, and we overcome difficulties and have courage to face our deepest desires as well, and compulsions, and maybe hidden vices, something that we overcome and we just leave it behind, we outgrow. These are all actually positive keywords for Pluto. It's yeah, make the subconscious. Pluto also rules the subconscious mind, so making the subconscious mind become conscious, and to bring things into the light, take back our power. And yeah, it's self-awareness and conscious, making a conscious choice indeed.
And once, obviously, I think often with Pluto, we give a new meaning to things. I do believe that Pluto is very much about self-knowledge. So we are invited to get to know ourselves more. Pluto does crave for safety, but often it holds on to things. It would never want to let go of something outdated. And we were required to let go of outdated things in our lives in the sign of, in the in the sign of Capricorn, right? So now, and then when we are reluctant to let go of things, then there is a crisis situation coming with that. So an old self is dying, but a new self is emerging at the same time. And most of us, what we do is that we sweep everything, every single bit of dirt under the carpets, and there
Mhm.
is no purging there. But if we embrace this purging and renewal, you know what? I think Pluto can be the greatest gift ever.
Yes.
So, what are the negative side of Pluto then?
I don't know if you noticed, but you're not on video. Your video
Oh,
disappeared. Mm. If you want, you can get it back.
oh, I'm here.
Yes, you're here. Huh? It feels better now that I see you. Okay,
I don't know
so
why I disappeared.
it happens. So the negative manifestations of Pluto could be related to manipulation of power and to using the power for only for your own selfish goals and not sharing it with others. Indeed, but that's a double sharpened knife indeed, because when you use the power for yourself only, you just pile it up inside and it becomes like a pressure cooker. So at one point it could burst out and it could just deteriorate everything around you and you including. So Pluto is fierce. It's a compulsive expression of ourselves and of our subconscious cravings. Pluto rules as well death, so that we can be reborn. Also, it's about being having egoistic motivation to do things. Being egotic, I think, is the word. Being ruthless as well, manipulate power struggle as well, being unforgiven, violent as the higher octave of Mars. It's being really violent to achieve your goals again, being really lustful, doing things behind the scenes. Pluto rules mafia as well. So any kind of crime and any force used in a negative, destructive way. It rules our defense mechanisms as well, which can be very self-destructive and also destructive in terms of relationships and others. We can distract others just to preserve a certain image that we want to keep. It's as I mentioned, it's all or nothing attitude. It's no in between. So repressing and thus creating this pressure cooker that we spoke about, it can be very sarcastic and cruel as well, judgmental, and this is actually our shadow side. And here comes the conscious choice, which way we want to go. And Pluto also rules childhood trauma because it's related to the meaning of the eighth house as well, and Scorpio. So it rules trauma and thus the subconscious mind, because subconscious mind builds in previous lifetimes and during the childhood when we don't take any conscious decisions for ourselves. So it also creates, in this sense, trust issues. And it could cause disloyalty as well, very much. Well, obsession, did I mention that? Being
Yeah,
obsessed with something. Yeah, I think, yeah, I think that's all I can think of at the
yeah,
moment.
pretty much.
Mm, yeah.
Well, some key words for Pluto in regards to mundane astrology. Well, it rules anything to do with microscopic processes. It's kind of like a chemical reaction to things. It could represent nuclear weapons, mass
Yes.
murder, catastrophes, natural disasters, kind of like shady businesses or shady organizations or a secret society which is kind of emerging. It could represent chemical weapons, environmental protection, terrorism, suicide bombs, but also martial arts or any type of laboratory experiments. So I would describe Pluto as a planet which is kind of like a gateway to gateway between life and death, pretty much. So
Yes.
Pluto, you can see, guys, it's a heavy planetary energy. So we're gonna start breaking it down for you house by house so that you can have a little bit of a preparation. Tsveti, how it's worth um, like looking at these house positions, or what would you recommend to people how they should be checking out their own chart?
It's very important to check out first of all, it's very important to listen to the general overview that we have been um, doing so far in the video, so that you know the positive and the negative manifestations, and you can somehow transfer this to your house position personally and see how this could play out for you. Also, it's very important because of this Pluto cycle, and it's very important to check Pluto in the natal chart to see which house it rules as well. So where you have Scorpio on the cusp, so that you can get a fuller idea of the primary purpose of the planet for you personally. And then specifically now, when Pluto ingresses into Aquarius, it will only hit the first degree of the sign and then go back to Capricorn and then ingress permanently into Aquarius. So this year and the next year, Pluto will only affect through a square with a difficult aspect those who have any planets or an angle between 0 and 1 degrees in the fixed signs, which are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And so this will present some challenge that we need to face, but we'll mention this later in the video as well. And then when you think of what you can listen in the video, it's your ascendant sign, sun or moon sign, so that you can get an idea of the areas of life which will be affected by the Pluto transit. Where listening to the ascendant sign, which rules the body, it's our incarnation, physical reincarnation on this planet Earth. So it will give the most tangible results, the most where the events will happen. So the house from the rising sign will really make the events which are unfolding, that are meant to be there, kind of set in stone for you as a body in this lifetime. And then you could look at the moon sign, especially for people born during the night who have a night chart, or for women, because the moon is much more active in women's charts. And then it will give you information where you will be investing your heart. This is how you will feel. This will give you the emotional level of things. And in this sense, we have less free will with the emotions, and we don't really have much choice to change that influence at the beginning, especially when the emotions get triggered. But then when we know how Pluto will affect from the moon sign, we can be consciously start working on this to really clean out the closet. And then listening from the sun sign, especially for people born during the day, and but also for everyone, because the sun is our essence indeed. This will give us the information on where we could possibly use our free will, because the sun rules the free will, and our conscious mind, how we can start using the mind to discipline it in a way so that we can act upon the change that we want to achieve. So yeah, that's the recommendation generally for every video, not only for this one, but especially for this one, because it's a very long transit. It's going to last 22 years. So it's going to
That's
be
right.
very slow, and the transit, if it makes any aspect to a planet or to an angle, it will be about 2.5 years long. So we'll have enough time to process, to see where we can cautiously work on a certain way we feel, or on a certain event. Yeah. So
Just I made a little bit of a, I mean, I did do a little bit of a research what degrees Pluto will be hitting. So Pluto will be moving into the sign of Aquarius very shortly, in a week time. And then it's going to be in Aquarius till June 11th, but it's going to be just lingering around 0 degree and 21 seconds. Then in January 2024 till 2024 September 2nd, it's gonna be again in the sign of Aquarius, and it's only gonna be hitting 2 degree and 6 seconds. And then it's gonna go back into, you know, Aquarius. I mean, sorry, it's gonna go back into Aquarius, reach that degree. So basically till 2025 May, it's gonna only be hitting 3 degree 49 seconds. 2026, 5 degree 30, 2027, 7 degree 10, 2028, 8:49, 2029, 10 degree, and 2030, 12 degrees. So you can see that it's only going to be going very slowly. So I usually recommend not to use more than a 2 degree orb with Pluto, but you can see that the biggest hits are going to be happening just a little bit later, depending on if you have got any planets there.
Sure.
Great. So let's have a look at these houses a little. Oh, and then one more other thing which I wanted to say, because I think Tsveti pointed that out, and I think it's very important. You need to check which house Pluto falls in your natal chart, because wherever Pluto goes, that is basically the natal imprint of that Pluto. Okay. So if we say that Pluto is the tendency to sweep dirt under the carpet, if it's in your 8th house, maybe you sweep the dirt under the carpet in regards to the fear of death, the pregnancy, and all those type of stuff. Okay. So wherever Pluto goes, you have to keep in mind that it's an 8th house Pluto, where it comes from. So if it goes into, for example, your, I don't know, 12th house, for example, and you're going to have to make the 8th and the 12th house meanings together. So that's very important.
Yeah.
Most likely, people who have got Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius placements, those are going to get impacted the most, because those are the squaring positions of this new emerged Pluto. So let's get started with the houses. Pluto in the 1st house. What do you have to share for us, Tsveti?
Yeah, when Pluto is transiting the 1st house, this means that you're an Aquarius ascendant. And the 1st house is very much related to the body, to our image, to how we look, to the physical body. So it can have it can make you compulsively wanting to totally transform the way you look. So maybe lose weight or gain weight, depending, or maybe your style or anything related to the way we look, so that we can feel more empowered. And that would be the purpose of this. And it's like claiming back our power as well after some crisis happened related to us. The 1st house could also be related to some health issue as well. So it's like we need to face this as a crisis, and then we are a totally new someone. Then it could also, because it's the 1st house, it's like the beginning of a total new cycle indeed. It's the start of something. It could also indicate the end of some karmic cycle as well for us, like going out of some crisis, and then we become a totally new someone with a totally new life cycle beginning for us. Kind of also it will increase our intuition, and we will become like a lie detector. We will definitely know when someone is talking the truth, and we won't agree to receive anything other than the truth. It's like all or nothing attitude, as I mentioned, and we can become really extreme into the things we like and dislike, the people we like and dislike. And this could kind of make us more assertive, look more assertive, because it will be all or nothing kind of attitude towards others and towards ourselves as well. So we should be careful not to bring ourselves down by becoming too overly self-critical, and by kind of surrendering to compulsive behaviors and hidden vices that we have, because they will now all start to appear. We can start
Hello?
meeting. Yeah, can
Oh,
you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, you
Okay.
came back.
We can start maybe meeting more manipulative people, so that we can become aware of such models of behavior, because if it was hidden so far to us from us, in a way we will, face this on the external. And we may become very manipulative ourselves as well, to achieve our own goals. The relationships, because the first house it's an angle, and it's very much related to the seventh house as well, and the fourth and the 10th. So it also is related to relationships, to how we are at home and at work-life balance. So it's like we might become obsessed with achieving a certain social position through changing ourselves and our mindset, through attracting the right people and getting into shady business, so that we can go to this social position and achieve that certain goal. It can be, we can become very coercing to others. We can start pushing them and pressing them. We can become very jealous as well. Or maybe we can realize we have always been jealous, and now it just comes to the surface multiplied, so that we can face this if it's an issue, and then move on. We can become very destructive as well, and violent, so self-destructive, or on the outer world, in the outer world. And as I mentioned, hidden vices. So we need to become very careful with not to overdo alcohol, drugs, and such, because this could poison the body. Pluto rules toxins and chemical stuff. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's more or less the general manifestation of Pluto through the first
I
house
think you will have a change of how you see the world,
as
surely.
well. Yeah.
Often when Pluto hits the rising sign, something could happen that is out of your control.
Mm.
Often we need to experience how to be single. Often these changes are so radical that you should never look back. It's the transition of the complete, I mean, it's a complete transition of the self. It's a forever change. Probably people won't recognize you anymore. You might not even recognize yourself as well. Sometimes it is an internal experience when you must deal with your inner fears. Something needs to change in your life. You are trying to control something that is not possible. Often that's the problem with Pluto. We are controlling something that is not possible. It's about what toxic situations do you need to get rid of. You do need to feel empowered to make these necessary changes in your life. Often you might become very suspicious about upcoming opportunities.
Yes.
It's the discovery of your own truth. How well do you know yourself? Are you only seeing the shadow side of things, or do you see do you see what is beneath as well? You know, we should remember that our fears sometimes lie to us and hold us back. What is your relationship with your own body? As Tsveti said, change of style, change of eating habits, and all those type of things. Often when Pluto hits the rising sign, we take on a very powerful role. We take in on a business opportunity. We get divorced. You need to be looking at what type of relationships do you tend to attract. Is your partner too demanding? Because Pluto on your side is pretty much about claiming your own power back. How are you going to stop your partner being too demanding? Often it's power dynamics changing in the relationship, and then maybe you're going to be earning more money than your partner, and it never happened before. Often people go to psychologists when it hits the first house because they play the role of the detective. So what do you really want to do? Or what you are not allowing yourself to do. Pluto is like a magnet. Are you attracting positive or negative things in your life? What type of life do you want to lead? These are going to be very significant Plutonian questions here. Or in what ways do you want to affect or manipulate the world? Are you aware that you can actually manipulate the outcome of your own life? Remember, the ascendant is a stirring wheel, right? So in what direction do you stir your own life now? You know, we need to remember that the angles are making us move and act. It provides us a stage for action to work towards our own growth, basically. The other houses do the work as well when we talk about the succeeding and the cadent houses, but they just less impactful, or not less impactful, but less, often a little bit less noticeable, basically. So it can also indicate that you have been controlling in your own relationship, and it doesn't work anymore, and the partner wants to take their own power back, and then you get upset about it. You can become the victim of unconscious forces of another person. It could bring conflicts of health. The angles are always about attitude towards life. So you have got a good 4 years here to transform, maybe to end certain habits in your life. Maybe you are forced to give up on something and you might be stubborn about it. Often you notice that people are unethical around you, or is it you who is unethical? Do you have any type of phobias? Because when Pluto hits the first house, those can grow actually. It is time to share your secrets with others. It might be that you are too suspicious about your partner, and then you start investigating. Maybe sex becomes a lot more important. Maybe you want to transform your body, and then you're going to go to plastic surgery. With Pluto on the first house, it could be about deep tissue massage. Good remedy there. Or a deep cleansing in your body or around you as well. Often, actually, people move places with the first house because the first house is here, the seventh house is there. So we're gonna have to cope with the extremes. There are some destructive attitudes we need to get rid of. There's always a hidden agenda going on as well with Pluto. And we are forced to make adjustments. Often we are just unhappy about life, and then we just need to find that inner motive to make changes. Unfortunately, Pluto in the first can indicate death of grandparents or a parental figure, pretty much. But we are going through this psychological healing. And if you are resistant to make changes, then unfortunately your body is going to start burning out, basically. Also, the first house is the first impressions we make. So you can make very powerful impressions on others. Just don't get involved in drama, or don't feed off on drama, basically. Often Pluto in the first indicates self-loathing, feeling defeated. There is a need to purge off all the outdated dreams, visions, and habits with this. Often we feel violated, or unfortunately we become part of a crime as well. That's a possibility. So the bottom line is, when Pluto hits your rising sign, your life turns upside down. That's the bottom line there.
Yeah, and it can turn upside down in every possible aspect because it's the first house. It affects everything. It's an angle, as you mentioned. So yeah, it could affect.
So look at it where
everything.
natal Pluto is in your chart and try to mix. If it's in the seventh house, which is impossible to have in the seventh house if you have got Pluto in the first,
yes.
so probably it could be somewhere around 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, 8, 9, and 10 house probably for these people. So typically it's going to be a career change, or you might be relocating with the ninth house Pluto, or you might experience some type of opportunities which are closing off, and then you have to find new doors to open up if Pluto is coming from your 8th house. Okay, Pluto in the second.
So Pluto in the second, it's quite interesting, I would say, because the second house rules our assets. It also rules any income that we have, our resources. It rules the wealth, the profit, the movable goods, and also it rules our talents. So when Pluto is actually transiting the second house, we could, through some crisis, we might need to start working on our talents more. We might get redundant from our job, let's say, or want to start earning more, and then we need to use every possible energy and talent that we have so that we can build on this. Pluto second house rules our values as well, so it's a total transformation of our values, of what we believe about ourselves and others, who we are, what we would like to achieve. So we could find our hidden assets, so to say, and magnify them so that we can use them for a good purpose. It could be rags to riches transit as well, like totally transforming our wealth year state. And it could be kind of the Midas touch. Everything we touch, it turns into gold, but then we need to make a differentiation between what's real gold and what's false gold. So and be careful not to fall to extremes, not to get greedy and start to misuse this power that we have. Kind of, we need to try to remain humble into whatever we have, and to start sharing this with the world so that everyone can heal through our talent and not only use it selfishly for ourselves. It could be kind of a total restructuring of the assets that we have, selling, buying properties, for example. And it could be, because Pluto is all or nothing, it could be the deal of our life, or it could be a total destruction of everything that we have, a loss of everything that we have. So when we experience this loss, we will need to rebuild everything from the scratch. Kind of we can become obsessed with money and possessions, because Pluto is also obsession. And we can even get involved into some crime, financial crime. We could do some deals behind the scenes so that we can gain the money that we think we deserve, and because of this obsessive money hungry attitude that we have. And it's also because money is energy. So it could relate to any type of energy, not only money. We could become obsessed with meditating too much, for example, and to gain the energy and to become powerful, and then it can distract ourselves. That's exactly what happened to me, indeed. Yeah, we need to become more in the middle, to try to keep a more middle ground when it comes to this. We could become more manipulative to others for financial gain, for example, kind of. Yeah, or we could be manipulated and lied, and then all the money goes in the ditch. So we need to transform again. Also, so that we can transform our relationship to money as well, to see, because Pluto rules extremes, as I mentioned, so we can go into deep poverty and then become really rich again, and then, yeah, just to experience the two extremes and just see where we want to be. Yeah. Also, we could manipulate others through sexual activities. Yeah, and yeah, it's like keeping our talents and assets hidden for our own good purpose. That's the danger. Yeah, if you want, you can also add up.
I mean, some of the major questions which might pop up here is, yes, what is your relationship to money? What is the lesson around money and possessions? How does money shape your life? But also, do you pay your bills on time? Do you live on edges? Do you run out of money at the end of the month? Do you borrow money from others? Because you might get tired of these. Watch out with Pluto here, because you can become more possessive. Do you share or do you hoard things? Are you possessive? How does money impact your relationship? Because this is a Taurian house. So it could talk about, relationships overall. and how it affects. But what is your self-worth? Do you need to cut back on your food intake a little bit? Do you rely on yourself or do you depend on others? Because Pluto will want you to discover your inner talents and then to basically to rely on yourself. Do you mix your self-worth with your net worth? Do you judge others by how much money they make, or do you feel judged by them? You know, it's the transformation of your own values. What do you spend money on? And, you know, what's kind of disposable and what's not? What do I need and what do I not need here? Often we feel that money gives us power and status. So we are craving for more and more money. Our needs and wants start growing as well. You know, but it can talk to you about your money mindset as well. Do you have a poor money mindset or a rich money mindset? Because it could talk to you about the law of attraction that, you know, you want to be attracting more money, but if you don't transform your mindset, it's never going to be happening. You know, also, what do you put into your own body? Often with Pluto, as Tsveti said, we put poison into our body, right? So it talks about the purification of our eating habits as well. We should remember that the second house is not visible to the rising sign. It's a dark house, basically. So often we are trying to control something which is kind of impossible. So becoming greedy, yeah, that could be, you know. Now the second house cusp, the sign itself is Aquarius. So obviously we are talking about here Capricorn rising. So it pretty much talks to you about that your style to finances is really Aquarius-like, but also it's your talent as well. So maybe it's about building a social network to make more money or using more internet-related methods. But Capricorn rising is very traditional, right? So it might be reluctant to use all these modern ways of earning money. It's about modernizing your source of money. That's what Pluto pretty much wants you there. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all I
and
have got to share.
Capricorn rising are very ambitious as well, and they could go to extremes and deplete their energy entirely in order to achieve a certain goal. So it's very important in terms of because the second house is the energy and how we actually gain energy. So it's very important to become to remain moderate, not to go to extremes, because especially in terms of going the like walking the extra mile, as they say, not to walk 10 extra miles instead of, you know, 1 or 2, just to measure your abilities, what you can really cover. Otherwise Pluto will totally distract you, the body. And yeah.
You know, with the second house, it's so important that we roll up our own sleeves to make something tangible.
Yes.
You know, often we need to get out of our comfort zone. You know, the question here is that how comfortable life we would like, you know, because often the second house wants more, a little bit more than just the essentials, such as food. And, you know, there is a need to realize our abilities here. Unfortunately, this is the death of the partner as well. So some people might lose their partner, but at the same time, it might be about that their partner is going through some major changes. It can be seen in the second house. And unfortunately, I think the biggest learning here is with Pluto in the second that we need to learn to share. So it's not just mine, it's yours as well. So I allow you to use it. You know, often we feel resentment towards people who actually have money because we feel like they don't deserve it. I have been working my ass off my entire life and I don't have money. So why is that? And they hardly do anything. Often, actually, we are on government aids when Pluto goes through in the second house, you know, or we are trying to get back at the system. We can become shady as well, you know, okay, I'm not going to pay taxes. I'm going to do this and that, right? So Pluto is the planet of shadiness. Okay, Pluto in the third house.
So Pluto in the third house would be for Sagittarius ascendant. And it is the third house is very much related to the way we communicate. It is related to short distance travels, the neighbors, our immediate environment, brothers, sisters, siblings, generally. So when Pluto goes through the third house, it will cause entire transformation of the house. So words can start having such a huge power when we use them, and we could start searching for the deepest meaning of everything everyone said. And words.
I lost you.
Uh,
Oh, I
I
got you again.
yeah, okay. So words could start having immense power, as I said, and they have the power to destroy or to support and heal others as well. So we start really working and realizing that the way we communicate actually impacts others, but it also comes back to us in a way. So whatever we cause on the outside comes back to the inside, and in this way we transform. So it could cause some kind of attracting verbal abuse, or we becoming verbally abusive to others, and this could be a result of because Pluto rules the 12th house for Sagittarius. It's the Scorpio cusp there. So it could be some defense mechanism in us being reactivated. So we start defending ourselves more and more harshly until we reach to the point where there is we just see there is no point into doing that, and everything comes down, and we start becoming more and more our authentic selves and start sharing it with others as well. So we can become, in the end of the transit, we can become incredibly good communicators, and we could become so good with words. I have been having Pluto transiting my third house while it was in Capricorn, because I'm a Scorpio ascendant, and I can say that I became really recognized for the way I am able to deal with words. And many colleagues at my daily job are actually reaching out to me to write difficult emails when we need to become more when we need to be more diplomatic and how to say things in a way that doesn't hurt others. But when the transit started, indeed, I was so suppressed to talk at all. I couldn't express myself at all. I was very silent, really, because I was afraid of hurting others, so I didn't say anything. And now, at the end of the transit, I can say that Pluto totally transformed the way I see communication. And I realized more and more that it's actually something necessarily. And even when it comes to negative feelings and to putting out in the open how you feel, I became really good at achieving a win-win situation, even in really hard discussions, and like being able to see the truth and the inner motive of others as well. But it was a really hard work indeed. And at the beginning, it was like I had to go through some losses in terms of communications, and I actually had some fights with the closest around me, and yeah, it brought me down. So it's a choice between starting to control others for your own good and for your selfish purposes and to manipulate them, or to learn to achieve the win-win situation through communication and through putting your inner feelings and whatever goes through you in a constructive way. But it takes time, definitely.
I mean, this is the first house which is in sextile to the rising sign. So the
Mm.
first major aspect. So, the first thing is that communication does help to express who we truly are. We need to learn to give voice to our feelings. It's the temple of the moon, actually. So often it talks about the translation of spiritual practices into our everyday life. So we do need to do some spiritual stuff. And this is really forgotten about the third house, that this is the temple of the moon. And the moon is all about emotions and spirituality. So, but it's the practicing of spirituality on a daily basis. People are invited to do that. You know, the third house is in between two worlds, the material world and and the spiritual plane. So I think the third house is the afterlife. What is our new karma? So Pluto pretty much helps you to build a new karmic journey for yourself for the next, for the next life, basically. Uh, Also, it could talk to you about, unfortunately, that something is going to happen to your siblings, or your neighbors are going to be very violent, or they are going to be druggies and all
Yes.
those type of stuff. But it might be about how you change your commuting, for example, that you get fed up of traveling by buses, so you're going to buy a car, for example. Also, in traditional astrology, the third house is more to do with the friends rather than the 11th house, because friends are like brothers and sisters. So maybe you're going to experience that your friends are coming and going, and then you're going to be making new connections with others. You know, in ancient times, we traveled to sell something, to visit relatives, or to visit an oracle. That was the main purpose of short distance travels. So this could talk to you about, that you're gonna start selling something, or you're gonna be more of a believer of some type of spiritual matters. And while you are traveling, you're gonna encounter some powerful people in your life, but also you can encounter thieves as well. In ancient times, what happened? People traveled for days. They stopped at villages to get their water bottle filled up and so forth. So we're meeting people who try to help us, right? And then we're going to talk to them. We're going to exchange views and news. There's a little bit of a gossiping going on there. But that is kind of helping us to make a decision. So these are encounters in our life who are making to transform the self, because
Mm.
that's the rising sign, right? We might be getting addicted to talking over the phone rather than making these important connections. You know, we might start writing blogs, or we might be closing our social media accounts, for example, because we're getting tired of that, you know? And
Yeah.
also, it's the transformation of the mind as well. The third house is the mind. So looking at how your mind operates, how do you speak? How do you write? How intellectual you are? Do you use your mind to your own benefit, or not so much? These are going to be major questions there. Or maybe it changes how you gain knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm. And what
yeah,
you're
the third
interested
house is
in.
indirect divination as well. It's typically about intuitively knowing something too.
Yeah. True. And
And it,
when you mentioned the neighbors being aggressive and stuff, the third house is also the 12th from the fourth, so it could indicate changing your place of living entirely due to some issues with the neighbors, the neighborhood, or having to travel or developing some interest. But interestingly enough, I like while Pluto was in Capricorn, I have always been subject to like having very aggressive neighbors. They were like fighting all the time, and I was absorbing this kind of aggression. So we decided to move indeed. And
Mhm.
yeah, actually, when we moved, they also moved. So it was very strange, but yeah, we moved due to the neighbors because they were so aggressive. And we, even my daughter, she was small then, and she would wake up in the middle of the night because they were fighting. And it was really awful when we were accumulating this kind of external aggression. It was not even directly, uh, directed to us, but we were like absorbing it. It was awful. And yeah, so it could happen as well. Become
You
like
know, I think it's so important to mention that the third house is so much to do with intuition.
yes.
I don't think we talk about that enough, because the intuition is pretty much of a ninth house meta. But if we cannot express our intuition, we cannot verbalize it. It doesn't mean anything, right? So it's the learning curve to be a little bit more intuitive. But also you might realize that education is very important to you. Or what is going to be the relationship with my siblings? But also the internal dialogues and conflicts we are having. That's a third house topic also. And if we are too pessimistic, we are too optimistic, that needs to be um, uh, changing. Also, the third house is the reaction time, how you react to situations. So maybe Pluto wants to transform a little bit things around there, you know.
Yeah. So
Okay,
true.
let's have a look
Okay.
at the fourth
Fourth house.
house.
Okay, this is me. This is all about Scorpio ascendant now. And Pluto will be transiting the fourth house for us. And it is our ruler as well. It rules our ascendant. So it could be a very intense transit, I would say. And because fourth house rules emotional security, it could cause us anxiety and having to really dig out the skeletons from the closet and become aware of our ancestral models that we need to outgrow, and when what happened during our childhood, maybe we will need to face such traumas. And fourth house is also closest family members, the family of origin and the family that we now create. So if there is some this kind of issues within the family, it could happen that we need to leave and then rebuild again the whole basis. This is the bottom of the chart, so this is the basis. So we might need to rebuild this. It could also mean finding something hidden within the home, physically, or it could be some family secret that we weren't aware of, and it could come up to the surface. It's a total transformation of family values as well, and the whole situation, but for the better, hopefully. This could often happen through power struggles with family members. And also, on a more material level, it could mean a total renovation of the home, building a new home, kind of causing like this big transformation in the family and in the personal life. It could also talk about becoming a parent as well. Um, it could indicate relocation. Um, and here, as I mentioned, it could talk about some toxic family members that we need to let go of, or if something within the family is destabilizing our life, then it will need to be left behind. It could happen through divorce, separation, or just power struggles. The idea behind is to really come to terms and not to go with each other and not to go to extremes in our daily family life. Um, yeah, I think that's more or less yeah, the secrets, disruptions. It could also indicate some disruptions in the home. It could be on the negative side. It could mean like a robbery or some violence happening in the home. But yeah, I would say that would be in very extreme cases, and in case Pluto makes aspects to hard aspects to other planets as well. Only Pluto through the fourth house wouldn't indicate such an extreme, but still. And yeah, on overall, it can be a very tough time on an emotional level, because we need to face all our fears, the deepest fears that we have, that were installed into us from the childhood. And the IC actually is what prevents us from achieving our vocation, the midheaven. So when Pluto hits the IC, we could finally become aware of what is stopping us from becoming who we are. Indeed. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the fourth house is the roots of our being. So these people tend to be going through an emotional transformation, the rediscovery of the self. I mean, this is the teenager era, pretty much in the first part of our life, something to do with the growing up, really. The teenager age is finishing from a chronological point of view. This would be the age 21, 28. So it's the reliving the second teenager era pretty much in our life. And often it might be because, we're going to separate, or we're going to, something happens, and then, we are forced to make some certain type of changes in our lives. But also, this is the house of memories. So it's about digging up some old ancestry wounds. This is the house of beginnings and endings. The fourth house is the house of funeral. Yes, often we lose a parent when Pluto goes into the fourth house, but also remembering that the memories live within us. Memories come and go here, actually. Sometimes they come in vision, smell, or touch. I walk into a room and then, I feel the room. I'm able to scan the room pretty much. The fourth house is the past. So it's about digging up the dirt from the past and then learning to go towards the future, which is the uh, which is the 10th house. Often the dilemma here is actually that I'm maybe working too much and I don't want to be. I don't want to be. I want to be spending a lot more time at home, or the other way around. The kids have grown up, so it's time to take the power back by going back to work. So remembering times when we had better days, and that could leave us a little bit devastated as well when the Pluto, is in the fourth house. How are you living within yourself? How do you feel in your own skin? It's about ancestral gifts as well. Maybe it's the rediscover or taking on a business, for example, your father did, inheriting the business from your father or your mom. It could talk to you about retirement as well, because the fourth house is pretty much the end of things, the end of our life. So we might be thinking about, um, what am I going to do at the old age? A little bit of a planning for that. Yeah, place of living you mentioned. Uh, yeah, pretty much I would say. The fourth house is the resting place of the sun. So how we rest, we can have powerful dreams here. Our sleeping patterns can change. The fourth house can represent the bedroom, which is the most private area of our life. So we can become a lot more private here, a lot more hidden. It's more of the self-discovery, But the sun also wants to shine at midnight as well. It just doesn't have the ability. So how to shine at night? Often it's actually, you know, connected. I mean, the first house, we are unaware of who we are at the beginning. In the second house, we discover our own body. In the third house, we turn our attention to our surroundings. In the fourth house, we pause a little bit and assimilate what we have learned so far from a psychological perspective point of view. So it's really talking about the reflection on the self, that everything has got a root. We just need to find that root. And the MC is pretty much about how we are seen, right? The IC is who we really are. When we invite someone into our home, you allow them to see you from deep within. So, it's about revealing something to others. That's the key success factor to the IC.
Yes.
Pluto in the fifth house.
So Pluto in the fifth house, Libra ascendant. So fifth house is very much related to who we really are, to our identity, to everything that is creative, to our hobbies, to sex, to partners, to how we enjoy ourselves. So in this sense, Pluto will be transforming all of these, and it could make us obsessed about some of our hobbies or some sexual romantic partners that we have, or it could make us obsessed about sex in general, and coming to extremes indeed, or becoming way too jealous and irrational when we get into a romantic relationship, so that we can kind of experience these extremes. And when Pluto goes out of the fifth house, we will finally know what we really need in a relationship and what's the middle ground. Or we could attract partners who are like this, so that we could experience this on the external level. We could also become very much interested into pleasures and enjoying ourselves, but also we can come in touch with our creative energy big time, and we can become very, very creative, and we could achieve transformation through
Tsveti, I
creative.
lost you for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you are
Yes.
back.
Okay, I'm back. So it could create, we can become very, very creative, and in this way we can transform our inner self and get in touch with who we really are. Fifth house also rules children, so it could mean more power struggles with children, with our children, for example. It could mean we get in a very deeper touch with our children, and we see in the end, we know there could be means of power and not means of something draining our power. So kind of, fifth house is also related, could be also related to having children, having the desire to have children, and we could also become obsessed with that idea. I think it's more or less that
I mean, fifth house is one of the money houses.
as well.
So money that comes from taking risks.
Mm.
So we're gonna have to figure out in what ways to take risks. Are we in the shadow, or are we ready to take some risks to increase our finances? You know, it's a succeeding house, so it's about support and stability at the end of the day. And this is the joy of Venus as well, which is the minor benefic or the major benefic in an eye chart, actually. So it could be talking about making money from family businesses, or becoming self-employed, or just selling a house, because there's the second from the fourth. So making money out of properties. It could talk about the accumulated wealth of a father, as well. Yes, maybe your dating life is going to be changing. It could be talking about the assets of the ground, like crops and fruits, and buying or selling a land. But it's about taking a risk. It's about transformation of your pleasure as well. So how much wine I drink, how much party do I attend? So what is your source of entertainment, really? That's going to be questioned here. I would also say that because the fifth house is enshrined to the first house, is the transformation of the self-expression, portraying a lot more of a powerful person's image, which is going to help the self significantly. It's the fifth house is a Leo expression, so to come into terms with who we really are, that's going to be a big one here. Or it could talk to you about, who do I want to attract? In what ways do I want to get to know someone? Maybe I'm going to go on a date and I'm going to have specific questions. Or what traits do I portray on those initial stages of the relationship? This is an animalistic house, right? So the self-creation, the sex becomes very important here. It's the house of gifts as well, the gifts I receive, but also the presents I give to others. And from a holistic point of view, the natural gifts I have got, we just need to put them on a stage. The fifth house is the stage, right? So what do we do for fun? What are our own hobbies? Can I make money out of hobbies? That could be something which comes up here. The fifth house connects to eating as well, because it talks about snacks and sweets and all those type of things. So maybe we want to be cutting back on those, you know. Also, what makes your heart sing? It asks you to be more playful, be like a child, Some people might want to get into stock speculations, for example. You might get rejected from a group of people, and then you want to create your own group. This is the house of drama. So we are often experience some drama in our life. You know, for example, oh, is the pregnancy test shows up positive or negative, you know? How much you like showing up and how much you are hiding. It's a little bit more of a challenge for Pluto here, to be honest, because Pluto is not about fun and playfulness. It's not about the inner child, but it's an invitation to go down deep and see why that inner child is crying within yourself. I also believe that the fifth house does connect to mental health. So people can go through mental health issues here because this is the third from the third. So the expression of the mind. And if it's too negative, you know, the Pluto is gonna want you to go to a mental health practitioner, for example, to overcome these type of issues.
Yes.
So we need to get out there to play a little bit.
Yes. And once we learn to play, then we move on to the sixth house where we can learn to work and to serve through our creative energy that we gain. So it's like continuation of the cycle. So Pluto through the sixth house, this will be for Virgo ascendant in the Virgo house, indeed. So it's very much about deep healing at work, and it could be related to how we see ourselves when we have to serve others. Sixth house is related to our working environment, our colleagues, so we could become jealous of their achievements, or they could motivate us and become like a role model for us so that we can strive and get to the place we want to be, but through serving others and like coming to terms with the fact that sometimes service doesn't bring with it the higher position or the status, but service for service sake, like for doing something good for others. It's like finding meaning and passion in doing everyday errands, in running the errands. It's like achieving better efficiency in the workplace and in the daily routine as well. Also, sixth house is related to health, and it could also indicate having to transform our daily life, daily routines, the way we eat, the way we move, how much we make sports, and how healthy life we have. And maybe we will need to transform this for the sake of health. We need to kind of acquire a more disciplined approach to the healthy routines, to take more supplements, for example. And then once we get over, for example, some problem that we face, a personal issue with our health or at work, we could become teaching others as well. This could become our passion, and kind of become a healer, because every healer is a kind of providing a service to others, and it's so again, the principle of Pluto, stop suffering and start healing others, could also get there as well. What else? It could also mean, on a more negative perspective, it could also mean power struggles at work, and or becoming obsessed with power, with having power, gaining the power at work. Also it could be going to extremes in terms of dieting, like all or nothing. I either eat nothing like 3 days or forever, or I kind of eat too much. It's the idea is to really find out for ourselves what daily routines we would like to follow in our life. For my husband, who is a Leo ascendant, and Pluto was transiting through the sixth house while it was in Capricorn, it was very much about work, for example. He had to transform entirely the way he saw himself at work, and how he was dealing with employees he had, and he was a subject of lots of jealousy, and sometimes he wanted to control others, but things wouldn't turn out for the best, and he had to practically rebuild his business 3 or 4 times until he actually found out what he really wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the sixth house is the house of preventions. So it's very important that we start building some type of new habits here to make sure that we maintain our own health. It's about our duties and obligations. Often when Pluto enters the sixth house, we have to pay some karmic debts back to others, maybe by looking after our own partner or parents or something like that. But it's very easy to burn out here as well. Often we believe that we have got an inexhaustible stamina, and then we don't, and that the body actually stops, working or functioning properly. Your sixth house often believed is that something to do with, like how well the body is, but it's more about illnesses. The vitality is the first house. It's about maybe your cleaning habits are going to be changing. It's about how you treat your body. Unfortunately, you can have accidents coming up, so we need to be mindful about that. The sixth house is stress management. So how do you perform under stress? What type of system you have got in your life? You need to have a schedule for everything, whether I go to the gym or what time I go to the grocery store. We're going to have these. It might be that your working conditions are kind of becoming unbearable. The sixth house is the second from the fifth, so it's about making money from your hobbies. So it could really talk about that you planted the seed of the idea of working for yourself, and then now you want to be doing that. In ancient times, the sixth house was about slavery. We do need to remember that we are also slaves now as well. We are just a slave to a company, right? And we work extremely hard for that little amount of money we receive. And nowadays it's not slavery, it's human trafficking. We've got the headhunters and all those type of things, and then they invite us to work. This is also apprenticeship as well. So we've got a master, and then we've got us who want to learn something new. This is the sixth house, is the ninth expression of Mercury. So it's an internal dialogue. In the third house, we were talking with others. Here we are talking about ourselves, with ourselves. So we'll really look into, yes, you might not get along well with coworkers. There is competition going on there. Maybe the coworkers are going to be jealous of you. Maybe you're going to encounter some service providers. Maybe it's going to be harder to get a tenant out of your house, for example. It could unfortunately talk about the death of your pets, especially the pets which are smaller than a goat. It could talk about your daily routines, how they are going to be changing. You might want to do your task more efficiently, or you want to simplify things a little bit in your life. You might want to take more herbs or vitamins or supplements. You might become a little bit more body conscious. You're going to be evaluating your stress management a little bit more. But I think the sixth house is the healing to find a job that is more fulfilling. So statistically speaking, most of our health issues are coming from work-related stress and frustration. Often the sixth house is the frustration of not being able to fulfill our own karmic journey. This is the house of karmic debts. So we start feeling that. And of course, because in the fifth house, what we did was that we learned to be in the spotlight. Here we are a little bit withdrawn. So we want to be escaping from the spotlight as well. We just want to be having more routine. So you might get fed up with the fact that, you know what, I'm doing these flexi shifts. Now I want a little bit more routine in my life. Just remember not to become a workaholic, because that
Mm.
could be something, which happens here often. The difference here is that the 10th house is the reputation, the desire to become someone. The 6th house is a work which we do to pay the bills. But often it's self-degrading and we are not happy with that. The 10th house wants to be famous. We want to be noticed somehow. The 6th house wants to be useful. And they want to be just great at what they are doing. It's a humble house, pretty much.
Yeah, no outward pretense, as they say. So yeah, being able to provide service to others for the joy of providing it, like healers and doctors. And it's not in vain that the 6th house, many people who are healers and doctors and medical stuff, they usually have a lot of planets in the 6th. That's what I noticed, because they're ready to serve
That's right.
others humbly. And yeah, they're not there for the outward success and for the Western values, so to say, but they're there to serve humanity, indeed. So yeah.
This is gonna be for loads of them, for example, I wanna be uh, troubleshooting, solving problems. Maybe
Mm,
you become better at investigating issues and you're gonna think them through logically.
mm,
You can become obsessed with your work, so we
mm.
just need to be making sure that those batteries are full, at all times. And with the 6th house, it's so important that we do stuff for fun as well. Yes, it could talk
Yes.
about, for example, a loss of a job as well, and we're going to have trouble to find another one or to figure out what vocation we want to be doing. That's unfortunately a possibility. But maybe the desired recognition is also coming in a sense.
Yeah, and we need to have patience. True.
In the meantime, I switched off my camera because my laptop's battery is running out and I had to come into my room where the lightning is terrible. So I was on the porch, so you guys cannot see me anymore. But let's go into the Pluto
That's
in the
fine.
7th house.
Yeah. So Pluto in the 7th house, this is for Leo ascendants, and the 7th house is all about partnerships. It's all about the marriage partner, but also any type of partnerships. So Pluto through the 7th house could have an effect on our marriage, if we are married, of course, and on our relationships as a whole. It could make us obsessed with them, wanting to be in a relationship. And it could give us this all or nothing attitude in relationships. No gray zone, so to say. It's either black or white. Or on the positive side, it could bring the relationship to a very deep level. We can become very deeply involved with the partner. And Pluto will give us this opportunity to examine deeply the truth behind why we are in a partnership, what's the result of being in a relationship. And it could have a very healing effect, if we had a hard time having a relationship. It's very transformative, in terms of finding the right partner. It could bring very intense experience with people who kind of penetrate our life. They come, they're obsessive with us, but going through this can empower ourselves and enrich us through this experience. Um, Also, the partner's presence, if we are already in a serious relationship or married, the partner's presence could be very supporting. It could be very healing, or the transit could be manifested through the partner. So something life-changing happening in the life of the partner. The partner going through some deep transformation, something important happening into their lives. Um, so we can attract very powerful partners as well in our business deals. this is who are very influential, and because this is an angular house, again, it will be affecting all the whole chart, indeed, all the angular houses. So it can again talk about work-life balance, who we are, and where are our boundaries. Yeah, in the end of the transit, we can actually be a totally new person in terms of how we relate to others. Indeed.
Yeah, because often subconsciously, we might be very inclined to find a partner who will provide a challenge for us to discover a different side of the self.
Yeah.
Often the relationship becomes competitive as well, or we feel that it's not based on equality or harmony. So we start craving for something else. Often this is going to bring in challenges in the intimacy department, whether we're going through menopause or the sexual desire lacks, or one is, more sexually wanting
Driven.
to be involved, the other one less. And then therefore cheating can be coming into the picture. We
Yes.
can become obsessive towards the partner, or if we are single, we decide to stay alone because we got hurt in previous relationships. And then, you're going to have to look at it, hold on a minute. We all need relationship. Pluto wants to shed light on that. Or we might break up and then we get stuck in our head in regards to that relationship, somehow being haunted by the relationship. Or maybe there is going to be a legal matter in regards to alimonies, or, how to, because remember, Pluto might be coming from your fourth house natally. So it could talk to you about how to divide the property, like how much money, how much is mine, how much is yours, and all those type of things. Also, it could talk about that the parent is actually getting involved in our relationship and poisoning our relationship. Statistically speaking, the first or the seventh house tend to get more active when we give birth to a child than the fourth or the fifth. It's very interesting. Just a few percent more, because it's about taking responsibility for others in the seventh house, right? So we might be, at kind of like a crossroad. Do we want to have a child? Do we want to not want to have a child? Often it's the psychological blockages that I only deserve a relationship. Once I don't know, lose weight, or, stuff like that. Or why am I always getting cheated on? So it's the psychological defense mechanism that I have to be protecting myself. It could talk just about the fear of losing a loved one, or the fear of losing love overall. Because this is the sunset, right? Often people get scared that I'm going to get into oblivion because the sun disappears from the sky. So I'm going to get forgotten, I'm going to get abandoned. So there is loads of psychological matters to deal with. And then the partner or ourselves might become very clingy in the relationship. And then we are making ourselves indispensable. Or the partner does that.
Yes.
And we're going to have to realize these energies.
Yes.
Pluto in the 8th house.
Pluto in the 8th house, this is the house of Pluto. So it's going to be very transformative indeed on the psychological level, because the 8th house shows everything that is hidden, the subconscious mind and psychology. And also it rules the deep sexual relationship between two partners, kind of almost tantric. So it can give us this experience as well during its transit through the 8th house. It could also, in order, if we become obsessed with wanting to experience such kind of sexual relationship, we could even start doing things behind the scenes, hidden from our partner, or it's about cheating as well, just like in the 7th house, but on a more sexual level maybe. And more the motivation behind would be to grow psychologically, and kind of the search of the soul, what the soul wants, and using sexual energy and the sexual power to achieve higher states of consciousness, for example. Or we can go, do deep psychological work. It can also be very transforming and empowering, especially emotionally, but then also it will manifest on a physical level as well. It can give huge psychological breakthroughs, I think. And in terms of money, because the eighth house is also a money house, this is the money of the partner, and the money coming from external resources, so banks and other institutions. So we can be able to receive loans and large loans now. And also the alimony settlement could be really great with Pluto transiting the eighth house. Also, this is the house of inheritances and insurances policies. So we could be receiving money from inheritance and insurance policies as well. Also, it is very important to note what happened during the Pluto transiting the seventh house time, because if you, for example, got divorced during this transit, maybe it's time now when we can see how this affected us, and clean out the closet again. Pluto is all or nothing, as we discussed, so it could leave us with absolutely nothing, and we have to rebuild everything anew, and now we see why. In extreme cases, it's either gaining a lot of money from others, or it could mean, on the other extreme, it could mean mismanagement of our joint finances and total bankruptcy. So it could bring business deals go wrong. Yeah, I mentioned the obsessive and dangerous sexual behavior. It could be on the negative side, or it could be transforming and very tantric sex experience. Or Pluto, when it transits the eighth house, it can make us very negative, and because Pluto rules fear, it can kind of highlight our fear of death and not wanting to face that life is actually has an end. And it can make us want to control something that is uncontrollable, as you mentioned before. So we will need to let go of this at the end of the transit. We will probably have come to terms with life being having an end, and being able to live with this thought. It could talk about secretive deals behind the scenes, because the eighth house is everything that is hidden. And we could also become the victim of such deals with Pluto through the eighth house. The partner could go through some huge transformation in terms of their money situation. And yeah, I think it's really that sums it up: the money, the power, the sex, and the hidden stuff psychologically. Once we work to enrich and to improve our psychological models and behavioral models, then we actually thrive.
Yeah, I mean, Tsveti did say something very important, that we do need to know what was going on in the seventh house. Because if it was a complete failure there, then, often we build resentment and trust issues in the intimate relationship, and those are going to get questioned here. Often in the eighth house, we might want to buy love, and so we feel like we need to get supported by others, or we're going to be supporting others because we are afraid that we're going to die alone. The eighth house is something to do with sharing something with others. So, whether there are some burden, or maybe shared resources in the relationship become a burden, actually, we might become more fascinated by death. We might feel that I want to die, I'm ready, or we just become afraid of death overall. Maybe you want to become a healer. Maybe you want to become, or you become more interested in psychoanalysis and astrology and all those type of things. Typically, when the money is not a source of a power struggle in your life, then Pluto can indicate great earnings here. Or when sex is not a heavy emotional overlay anymore, then it can become an important means to rejuvenation. So it really depends on, where you are in your life. But yes, the bedroom can become a battlefield as well, or we want to be having the upper hand in the sexual relationship, for example. It could talk to you about being this dominant and submissive roles.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously being, kind of like a survival, our survival is threatened because it's opposing your second house. So getting fed up of being reliant on others. But also it's a great business sense here as well. So it might be the start of you know, of a business opportunity. Definitely, it's a challenge because it's invisible towards the rising sign. It's about the destruction of the ego here. We need to suspend something here, and we're gonna have to kind of somehow restart. So these are just some very important matters to consider here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Often the question is it me who is going to die first, or my spouse, or what death is going to look like? Or are we going to inherit, for example? Are we going to have struggle around inheritance? Do you need to go through some griefs and losses? Often we question the legacy matters here. So, what am I going to leave behind? It's your partner's finances, so they might go through some uh, changes there. Your mood can fluctuate quite a lot too, right?
Yeah.
So this is something which is squaring the fifth house. So often the core of the emotional center of our happiness lays in the eighth house, and we need to find that, where it is. The second and the eighth house is kind of like the gates between the underworld and the physical world. So the eighth house tells you that you need to dig deep first to make something on the material plane. The second house is gain from your own labor, your earned income. The eighth house is something from others. This is basically the unearned income. So which one are you going to choose? That's some typically, we need to remember with the eighth house that there are things we cannot take with us, you know, to the grave, right?
Yes.
So is it really important, or I need to reevaluate my values? That's something we're going to have to look at here.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
And
what about, you
yeah,
go ahead.
no, I just wanted to say that people who are involved in a more psychological career, for example, they could benefit very much from this Pluto through the eighth house because it could turn out very successful period for them for their business because they are attracting money from clients and Pluto is a magnet, as we mentioned, so they can become they could have a surge in clients coming to them. And this could be very transformative for them on the positive sense. Okay, Pluto through the ninth. This is for the Gemini ascendants. And the ninth house is actually the Sagittarian house, which rules our belief system, the kind of the global views, spirituality, philosophy. So the thought process here could become very penetrating with Pluto transiting the house, and we could have start having really great insights about trends, coming trends, futuristic trends, being able to kind of see more the bigger picture. Because Geminis, they usually tend to focus on too many things at a time and kind of dissipate their energy. Now with Pluto through the ninth house, this could help them actually become more together, themselves more, and to become more focused, and to see what worldview, what specific philosophy, religion, kind of they need to follow so that they can achieve the long-term goal. This is the area of the higher mind. So kind of, again, the discipline of the higher mind, being able to see the forest and not only focusing on the trees. And of course, because this is Pluto, it could make us go to extremes and kind of want to force our worldview onto others, or to meet people who are very extreme in their beliefs. It could make us at first, especially at first when Pluto enters the house, it could make us be more, believe more in the doom and gloom of things, and have very negative expectations about the bigger picture, the world, humanity. But then when we, adjust to the energies, this could actually make us more moderate at the end of the transit. So yeah, the existential philosophy could be that we follow, that we believe in, could be entirely transformed for us. And also, ninth house rules foreign travels, foreign countries, and this could, in this sense, any foreign travel could turn out to be very transformative for us. We could come back from a certain country with a totally different view of life. It could be very enlivening. Yeah, and so yeah, also the ninth house, with Pluto through the ninth house, we can develop interest in different philosophies, and also in psychology, astrology. We may want to learn the deeper of it, so that we can see the bigger picture. Yeah, we can use these tools, the occult. Yeah, and yeah, more.
This is a house which is trining the first, and this is the planetary joy of the sun. So it is the transformation of the self, which is going to be helping us in the long run. This is a house where this is the first stage of our middle age. So often people go through a midlife crisis when there is a Pluto transit there, and they feel that they have to study something else, because after we're going to come up to the MC, right, which is about
Yes.
maintaining your status. So learning something in order for you to be able to achieve something in life too. Yes, we might become a lot more spiritually inclined. We might relocate, as you said, but also this is the house of dreams as well. So often we are inclined to go on a search to meaning to life. It's very important that we deal with that, with our faith here. With the ninth house, we all live in God, and God also lives in us as well. So we need to learn to believe in something. Our philosophy needs to change. It's the spiritual journey of the soul. So your belief system gets tested here. You know, we came from the unknown, which was the eighth house. Now it's about the experiences that take us towards the unknown as well. If we go anti-clockwise or clockwise with the planetary transits, it's about, why do we study? We study to have a better understanding of concepts. It's about exploring theories here. It's about diving into a deeper knowledge, which is going to be serving your career, right?
Yes.
So even change of jobs can appear already here in the ninth house. The eighth house, for example, was about claustrophobia. So we felt we are kind of in a dark room. The ninth house, it's about breaking out of it. It's about having fresh air, fresh perspective in life. It's a fiery house, so it catches easily, like the fire, but it
Mm.
also goes away very quickly as well. It can be put out. So just being careful about what we are passionate about. That could be just important here to mention. Also, ninth house is the house of law. So the laws of a country, the laws of your own, your ethics, your moral code, those might be changing significantly. The eighth house, we were meant to be finding strength and the power within us. In the ninth house is the application of the newly found courage and creation of foundation for actions. So your dreams, the expansion of your horizon, basically. In the eighth house, we might have gone through some crisis situations. In the ninth house, we just need to think about what happened, trying to find a spiritual meaning to it. You know, the third house is the mind. The ninth house is a very complex mind. So it's about a huge amount of information we need to process here. The third house is early education. The ninth house is building on that knowledge. So knowing that the knowledge is a powerful tool, so studying is extremely important here, actually.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
this is the sickness of the father as well. So it could become an issue. You might become a grandparent because the ninth house is the house of grandchildren. Also, you might feel that your partner is communicating to you in a demanding way. This is the third from the seventh. Often there are misunderstandings with the partner as well. Often our religion is just shifting. Often we become more interested in alternative healing, such as chakra healing and all those type of things. That's again a possibility. Um, the ninth house is like wizards and priests and physicians and inventors and all those type of knowledgeable people. So we can encounter some great knowledgeable people who might show a different alternative route to success. Pluto is success.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Pluto is success, and that's exactly what it can bring when it transits the 10th house. um,
Yeah, and also it's very easy to become an eternal student with the ninth house. So
oh, yeah.
Pluto wants you to know that your knowledge is powerful and you are meant to be sharing that with others. It's
Mhm.
trining the fifth house, so it can help the self-business idea as well. Definitely, this house wants you to dig into dream interpretations a little bit more, you know. Why am I existing? What is my own truth? What do I have? What do I have got to live for? You know, these are some questions which might be popping up. Um, and standing back and looking at the world at its largest form as an opportunity.
Yes, and important
Pluto in the
to,
10th house.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I just wanted to say it's important not to become too fixed and too obsessed with one specific thing that we start following and to start to course it on others. Yeah, that's what I meant. So Pluto through the 10th house. Pluto through the 10th house can make us very power hungry and wanting to become powerful and to have a huge career success. So I believe that for those who actually follow their heart and follow their path, Pluto will bring this. But for those who are kind of having a career which is not what they really want to be doing, and they just put up with something for the security or for the material part of it, they will be kind of forced to face what their true talents are and what their vocation is. And yeah, so they could come to need to the need to entirely transform their career and social standing. With Pluto transiting through the 10th house, we might need, because this is the most visible part of the horoscope, this is the peak point. So we are very visible there. And when Pluto starts transiting the 10th house, we might be seen as very powerful figures. And we might even become kind of a public figure. We might receive some special recognition at our career. Yeah, so it can give us the fame that we really crave. As long as we could also become very manipulative to achieve a certain career goal, or we could be meeting our bosses, authority figures. They could become very manipulative to us. So there is this danger for us to become obsessed to get ahead in status at all cost. And this could play out in a negative way later. Um, it could kind of tempt us to use some hidden information, underhand methods to get ahead, like missing important information, like not sharing it with others, cutting corners, being dishonest, or meeting people like this. And it's because this is an angle again, it's making a square to the 1st house, to the 7th house, and an opposition to the 4th house. So it activates the whole chart practically. It will have Pluto transiting through the 10th house will have an effect on our whole life. And at the end of the transit, we will be a totally new someone, probably. And we will seek professional recognition. And some, by the way, because Pluto is very hidden, so some unforeseen activities, something that we didn't notice could affect our career in a big way, in a positive or in a negative way. Also, we will need to learn to communicate very effectively with different types of people. And having this attitude of all or nothing could bring us take some risky behaviors, and yeah, which could sabotage our career indeed. With Pluto transiting the 10th house, we could become extremely powerful and successful, even famous, I would say, because this is the highest point. And yeah, the 10th house rules the mother. So it could have a very deep transformational effect on our relationship to the mother on a psychological level. Yeah, and also it could mean, yeah, I think that's all, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, there is definitely a desire for power or a desire to be at service to society. If we abuse the power here, probably Pluto will bring us down. If we are too, reserved with the power, then it might give us the power even if we don't want to. It can bring difficult situations with authority figures. Unfortunately, it can bring divorce as well, because maybe your Pluto is coming from the 7th house natally. Often the parents are too controlling, or often they are abusive as well. And then we might be having some deep-seated resentments towards people in power, for example. Definitely we want to achieve a lot more here. The parents can be very ambitious, for example, during this period, and they push us to be more ambitious as well, you know. Also, the Pluto is, sorry, the 10th house is in traditional astrology is about treatments. So it could talk to you about having certain type of treatment. I recommend listening to your fourth house also. If you have a Pluto in the transit in the 10th, listen to the fourth house as well, because that's an axis, and then you can experience a lot of events from your fourth house too. Often we become a little bit of an all or nothing in regards to our career, and then we risk things. So if that's the case, we might need to sometimes step back and, listen to our intuition a little bit with that Aquarius there. But naturally, we might be more gravitating towards success. So this could be a great one. We can get professionally acknowledged, but often unforeseen situations can affect our career too. Pluto in the 11th.
So Pluto in the 11th, it's if the 11th house is any kind of group activity, the friends, the social circle that we have, our long-term goals as well, the money that we receive from the job that we do. So it when Pluto is transiting this house, it is going to bring total transformation in terms of power within the groups that we are members of. It could indicate us cutting ties with a certain long-term goal that we had, or or totally transform the goals that we have. Our friendships will undergo also profound transformations, and so that they can become more meaningful and more close. As I mentioned, this is the money that we make, so money and support could become available at one point once we realize the subconscious models that are actually preventing us from gaining the money that we deserve. We could become very laser focused on group activities and group objectives, and kind of become more aware of how we individually could support a certain group or community in moving further. We could also, because Pluto is power, we could become very powerful and have a huge influence over large groups of people. We could become socially powerful, and also the 11th house rules the internet, and we could become famous in the social media, very much seen there, and whatever words we say or use, we could have a huge effect on bigger groups of people. We could spread our knowledge and our mission. We could share with others, and this could really bring more people to the community. On the other side, it could mean that we go into groups which are kind of manipulating us, or we could be manipulating them for our own purpose. Also, because 11th house is related to the long-term goals, we could use some methods, behind the scene methods, which are aimed to achieving our personal goal to advance, and kind of acquire the attitude of the end justifies the means. We could also use the web and social media in a very negative way to harass or to bully others, or we could be bullied and harassed through these channels. So there is this extreme of either you becoming powerful and being able to somehow affect a huge crowd, a whole community of people in a positive way by sharing your experience, or you could somehow fall in the wrong crowd and you could become manipulated. Also, because Pluto also rules jealousy, we could become very jealous of our friends, and we might be having some trust issues with them. So again, kind of cut ties and remove certain people from our life um, without even giving the reason why. But this could be painful though, because that's Pluto, and this could also be due to a new career coming from the 10th house, transforming our career. So we now need to somehow transform entirely the groups and communities where we belong to, just because we have some new priorities. Yeah, more or less, I think that's in summary
I
the
think
most
it's very
important.
important to mention that, you know, it's very hard to embrace this house if we don't build the right connections, because you cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
It's a team spirit. The team doesn't always talk about deepened connections. This is the house of benefactors, people who support us. But these connections have got a purpose. Whether, you know, they're going to put us on the right road, they give us some great advice, or they give us money, God knows what it is, but it has got a purpose. So how we utilize these people and how they utilize us, you know, shows up here. So meeting powerful benefactors, but also us giving, because Pluto is sharing. So we share our own power with others. You know, I'm a famous, let's say, social media influencer, so I'm going to give a hand to others to do so. Otherwise, you know, second one is it's a goal, the transformation of the goal. Now, you know, there's a short-term goal and there is a long-term goal. The main difference is yeah, you know, that the long-term goal tends to drive directions and strategy, while the short-term goals are tied to your current situation and tend to be easier to achieve. So the fifth house is a short-term goal, the 11th house is the long-term goals. So with the 11th house, if we are thinking about the long term, we need to be planning things, right? So there is the planning which is involved here. We need specific targets. We need to set goals. Those goals need to be attainable. They need to be relevant. And there needs to be a time limit given as well. So what are your goals, and then how you are, you know, kind of measuring them? Are they relevant? Are they outdated? Do I need to move forward? You know, and there's definitely a topic because Pluto previously was in the 10th house here. So maybe it's an outdated work and we need to give a rebirth to it. Also, the 11th house is the house of good diamonds. Now, the diamond was about noble spirits in ancient times. These diamonds were the holder of superpower. So it's the discovery of your own superpowers, what you are really good at. What what are my talents, basically? This is the third best house of all. The first one is the first house, the second one is the 10th, and the 11th is the third best house, because it also talks about rising to success. It's going towards the midheaven. But we must have effort. We must have a creative vision, the hope that things are going to get better, because this is the house of Jupiter's planetary joy. So if we don't have that faith, then unfortunately success will never come. So here we need to transform our faith, and that's extremely important.
Yeah, that's so true.
And the last one is the 12th house, which is mine.
Yeah. So the 12th, so Pluto will be transiting your 12th house, so the Pisces ascendant.
Right.
And it's actually the ruler of the ninth, where you have Scorpio. So it's going to bring transformative experience, because the 12th house is the house of the unconscious. It's a collective house. So Pluto transiting through there could bring insight, profound insight, indeed, on the psychological realm, in the dreams, and dream, it could indicate deep healing through dreams, through lucid dreaming, to reframing the past. It's a very psychological house. It's a hidden house where we tend to isolate ourselves, where we need to kind of work on our hidden vices, work on models that, you know, might be self-sabotaging, or sabotaging our success a big time. So some hidden, painful secrets could come to the surface when Pluto is transiting through the 12th house. And if we don't really want to face our shadow side and the kind of the skeletons in the closet, these could come through nightmares and through dreams, vivid dreams, which could be very unsettling, so that we can go through certain emotions and kind of set free ourselves from them. Also, we could become aware, because Pluto also rules deep research, just like the 12th house, doing deep research in isolation. Pluto could have a very huge effect on the Piscean risings through getting them in touch with some universal truths. They will be revealed to them, and maybe through meditation and through conscious dreaming, you could find the answers to many questions that you had, because there is, with Pluto through the 12th house, there is this deep need to search for the truth and wisdom, so that you can understand the meaning of life, why life is
Tsveti, we lost
happening.
you for a second.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, you are back.
Now I'm back. Okay. So there could be this with Pluto through the 12th house. This is the need to search for the truth and the meaning of life, the wisdom, why, how we understand life, and this could make us go through deep healing and deep research in this sphere. There is, because 12th house is very isolated, there will be this desire to retreat from anything social, and kind of be on our own. And so any kind of emotions that were repressed and hidden even from ourselves, that we managed to somehow dig or sweep under the carpet, they will come to the surface in the form of maybe self-destructive behavior that we will now be able to see, or maybe it could come in the form of an illness, and then we need to fight and actually change our mindset so that we can overcome, we will come to realize that we don't need, maybe that we don't need to control our emotions, that it is safe to be emotional as well, by for example experiencing extreme emotions in the presence of others, and just being able to observe that our emotions do not affect others as much as we think they would. So we will be closer and closer to our authentic self. And yeah, what else? Yeah.
Well, I do believe that here there is an intense search for truth and wisdom so that we can understand life better. You know, often, unfortunately, this also brings upheavals in our life, but those are coming on our way to bring us back to the correct path. Often there is a desire to retreat from the society. Often, yes, we want to be repressing our emotions, and we build self-destructive behavior, or we're going to have some chronic illnesses, or we might become addictive towards something, or the addiction becomes a way to control our emotions. Often we might want to rescue others, or we want to be rescued, so we can become the victim of our own acting out. But it can be the discovery of your spiritual calling as well. You know, you just need to be a little bit more analytical. You need to resist to be kind of ordered around, and you might want to be working for yourself as well. I mean, this is the work quadrant of the chart, really. Yes, we can be oversensitive, It can be an emotionally intensive period for others. We can become depressed as well, unfortunately. We can become a refugee, for example. We might be crossing borders and, the ocean, and then we're going to live somewhere else. We might just become very sensitive towards others suffering, and then we want to rescue them. Often, actually, our intuition works extremely well that we feel something in our bones, or we just feel completely lost and we lost the path. We don't know where we belong anymore. So it requires us to go on a self-discovering journey, and you know so it's kind of like experience of the death, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would add to Pluto here. I think the major fears, if you wanna, recap on that. First house is the fear of making choices, being alone or standing out of the crowd or being singled out. The second house is the failure to meet someone else's needs, the failure or the fear of homelessness or poverty. The third house is the inability to learn or saying the wrong things, or people won't be honest to us. The fourth house is the loss of safety, or I become again homeless or I'm going to get abandoned. The fifth house is that I'm going to be blocked creatively or I'm unable to enjoy life. The sixth house is being trapped in the service industry and no choices in life anymore, so I remain a slave. The seventh house is that I'm not an equal partner anymore. I'm getting ignored. I'm getting overpowered by others. The eighth house is being overpowered, or people are going to lie to me, or they're going to abuse me, or we build trust issues. The ninth house is that, I have to control my belief system. I cannot say out loud what I really feel like, or I refuse to believe things. The 10th house is that, work is controlling me, or I'm going to be publicly ashamed. The 11th house is being overpowered by others, or the 12th house is the getting lost in the world, and life has no meaning. If you want to kind of, recap.
Yeah, that was a great summary. Indeed. Yeah. So I think we came to the end of it.
I mean, it became a little bit of a longer lecture than we kind of believed, but no problem. It was good to be here with you, and thank you for sharing your insights with others as well. And maybe soon we're going to do one just on some aspects to the planet as well. We will see, because this is a major shift and people do need to get ready for this.
Okay,
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Tsveti, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much, everyone. Hope to see you soon too. And yeah, till the next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.